Imagine walking into a world of luxury, expecting warmth, only to be met with icy stares and whispered judgment. Jasmine Carter, a woman of grace, intelligence, and undeniable success, had been here before. But this time would be different. In just 6 minutes, she would shift the balance of power, and those who had looked down on her would regret ever making that mistake. Stay with me. This story will leave you speechless. The soft hum of conversation blended with the clink of fine glassware. The airport lounge was a realm of exclusivity, where wealth and status dictated who belonged. Jasmine entered, the sharp click of her heels against the marble floor announcing her presence. Dressed in a tailored navy suit, she exuded confidence, her leather briefcase an extension of her authority. She had earned her place here, but as she stepped forward, she felt it. The weight of eyes, the unspoken question hanging in the air. Does she really belong? A young man in a crisp uniform APPR. She had seen this before. The whispers, the glances exchanged between patrons, the quiet judgment. Minutes later, another figure emerged, a woman in a sharp red blazer, her name tag reading Heather. She wore authority like a weapon, her gaze sharp, her tone laced with artificial politeness. "Miss Carter, is it?" she asked, holding up the membership card as if inspecting a counterfeit bill. Jasmine's smile didn't falter. "That's correct." Heather tilted her head. "Are you aware this is a priority lounge?" Jasmine's grip on her briefcase tightened ever so slightly. "I am. I've been a priority member for over 5 years." Heather's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'll need further verification. We've had instances of unauthorized use of these cards." There it was. Jasmine held her ground, her voice smooth, unwavering. "Are you suggesting this card doesn't belong to me?" Heather smirked, just enough to make her point. "I'll just need to run it through our system. Procedure, you understand." Jasmine nodded. "Of course. Take your time." Heather disappeared again, leaving Jasmine to the murmurs of the lounge. A couple nearby exchanged knowing glances. A man muttered something under his breath, just loud enough for her to catch. She probably saved for months just to walk in here. She sat, her movements measured, her mind sharp. She had worked too hard, fought too many silent battles, to let this moment shake her. Then, with a slow inhale, she picked up her phone and made a call. "This is Jasmine Carter," she said, her voice carrying an edge of steel. "We need to talk about the Skyline Air contract. There's been an incident." On the other end, Anderson Quinn, her company's chief operating officer, listened in silence. When he spoke, his tone was firm, knowing. "Tell me everything." Jasmine's eyes locked on Heather, who had returned, her expression smug. "Their staff believes it's acceptable to demean their customers based on appearances," Jasmine said. "I was accused of misusing my membership, then subjected to veiled insults about my place here, all under the guise of procedure." Anderson exhaled slowly. "Unacceptable." Jasmine leaned forward, voice lower now, deliberate. "I want them to feel the full weight of what they've done, not just a slap on the wrist." A slow, dark chuckle rumbled through the phone. "Understood." She ended the call and set her phone down, waiting. Moments later, Heather's phone buzzed. She answered it with her usual confident air, but within seconds, the blood drained from her face. "Yes, sir, I understand," she stammered. "But I didn't realize." Her gaze flickered to Jasmine, panic creeping into her polished exterior. The other staff members, sensing the shift in atmosphere, exchanged uneasy glances. The room, once filled with awe. "Miss Carter," she began, her words carefully measured. I'd like to apologize for the misunderstanding earlier." Jasmine tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "Misunderstanding?" she echoed, her voice smooth as glass. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Heather flinched, fingers twisting together in a nervous dance. "I assure you, we meant no disrespect, Jasmine held up a single hand. "No disrespect," she cut in, voice steady but sharp. "Yet you openly mocked me. You questioned my legitimacy. Tell me, Heather, would you have done the same if I had walked in here looking any different?" Heather's mouth opened, but no words came out. Silence stretched, each second heavier than the last. Jasmine finally leaned back, exhaling. "You do understand, don't you, that I'm not obligated to accept your apology? Actions have consequences, Heather." Her voice was calm, but the promise behind her words was ice cold. "You'll see that soon enough." Heather's face lost all color. She swallowed hard, retreating without another word. The lounge, once filled with the low hum of conversation and the occasional burst of laughter, now felt suffocatingly silent. Jasmine lifted her phone, dialed a number, and spoke just 2 words. Pull the trigger. The response on the other end was immediate. Consider it done. The storm was coming. The glass doors to the lounge hissed open, and a sharply dressed man entered, his presence shifting the entire room's energy. Conversations hushed. Eyes flickered toward him. His tailored suit and polished silver tie marked him as someone important, but it was the weight of his gaze that commanded attention. Edward Langston, regional director of Skyline Air. Heather went rigid. The phone in her grip trembled slightly, her earlier arrogance completely replaced by a barely contained panic. Her eyes darted toward Jasmine, searching for any sign of leniency. She found none. Miss Carter, she began, her words carefully measured. I'd like to apologize for the misunderstanding earlier. Jasmine tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. Misunderstanding? She echoed, her voice smooth as glass. Is that what we're calling it now? Heather flinched, fingers twisting together in a nervous dance. I assure you, we meant no disrespect, Jasmine held up a single hand. No disrespect? She cut in, voice steady but sharp. Yet you openly mocked me. You questioned my legitimacy. Tell me, Heather, would you have done the same if I had walked in here looking any different? Heather's mouth opened, but no words came out. Silence stretched, each second heavier than the last. Jasmine finally leaned back, exhaling. You do understand, don't you, that I'm not obligated to accept your apology? Actions have consequences, Heather. Her voice was calm, but the promise behind her words was ice cold. You'll see that soon enough. Heather's face lost all color. She swallowed hard, retreating without another word. The lounge, once filled with the low hum of conversation and the occasional burst of laughter, now felt suffocatingly silent. Jasmine lifted her phone, dialed a number, and spoke just 2 words. Pull the trigger. The response on the other end was immediate. Consider it done. The storm was coming. The glass doors to the lounge hissed open, and a sharply dressed man entered, his presence shifting the entire room's energy. Conversations hushed. Eyes flickered toward him. His tailored suit and polished silver tie marked him as someone important, but it was the weight of his gaze that commanded attention. Edward Langston, regional director of Skyline Air. Heather went rigid. The phone in her grip trembled slightly, her earlier arrogance completely replaced by a barely contained panic. Her eyes darted toward Jasmine, searching for any sign of leniency. She found none. Edward's gaze swept over the room before landing on Jasmine. His jaw tightened slightly, though he masked it with a composed expression. As he approached her table, he nodded. Miss Carter, he said smoothly, though a thread of unease ran beneath his tone. I believe we need to talk. Jasmine's expression remained unreadable. Indeed, Mr. Langston, have a seat. He obeyed without hesitation, folding his hands on the table like a man preparing to defuse a bomb. First and foremost, I want to personally extend my deepest apologies for today's unacceptable behavior. It does not reflect the values of Skyline Air. Jasmine raised an eyebrow. And yet, she replied, it happened. Not once. Repeatedly. This wasn't an accident, Mr. Langston. It's a culture your staff felt comfortable enough to uphold. Edward swallowed, his fingers tightening slightly. You're absolutely right, and I take full responsibility. Steps will be taken immediately to rectify this. Jasmine leaned forward slightly. Steps? She repeated. Mr. Langston, I am not interested in vague assurances. Do you have any idea what was at stake here? He hesitated. The room around them remained deathly silent, the weight of the moment pressing against every witness. Heather, still rooted near the counter, looked ready to collapse. Edward exhaled slowly. Your account is one of our largest and most vital. Losing your partnership would what? Jasmine interrupted. Be inconvenient? Costly? Embarrassing? What about the humiliation I endured? The assumptions? The blatant disrespect? Do you have any idea how often I've had to prove myself just for walking into rooms like this looking the way I do? Edward flinched, just slightly, but he didn't look away. Miss Carter, he said, his voice quieter but firm. I can't undo what's been done, but I can assure you, those responsible will be held accountable. Skyline Air will not tolerate this behavior moving forward. Jasmine studied him, the tension between them thick enough to cut. Finally, she nodded once. A small but seismic shift. Good, she said simply, because I've already canceled my contract. Edward's composure cracked, just for a second. His eyes widened before he masked his shock. Miss Carter, he began, leaning forward slightly. Please reconsider. There is nothing to reconsider. Jasmine cut in. I gave Skyline Air every opportunity to prove its worth, and time again, it has failed. My decision is final. Edward sat back, his shoulders sinking slightly. The weight of her words settled over him like a crushing blow. I understand, he said quietly, his voice devoid of its earlier authority. But please know, we will do everything in our power to earn back your trust. Jasmine didn't look up as she picked up her phone, tapping the screen with a deliberate air. I hope you do, Mr. Langston, for the sake of your other customers. Edward rose, turning to face the staff. His gaze was like ice as it settled on Heather, who looked like she was barely holding herself together. Heather, he said, voice cold and cutting. A word. Now, Heather's breath hitched. With unsteady steps, she followed him out of the lounge. The rest of the staff exchanged uneasy glances, their camaraderie fractured under the weight of their collective guilt. Jasmine watched them for a moment, her expression neutral. Then, without another glance, she rose from her seat, collected her briefcase, and strode toward the exit. Her steps were unhurried, deliberate. The glass doors hissed open as she stepped through, her heels clicking softly against the polished marble. Silence hung over the lounge like a storm cloud, heavy and unrelenting. And though Jasmine had left the room, the tempest she had unleashed was far from over. I didn't mean for it to come across that way, she murmured, tears welling in her eyes. But Edward's gaze remained stone cold. Intent doesn't matter. Impact does. And the impact of your actions just cost this airline millions. Behind the closed doors of Edward's office, Heather faced his wrath. Outside, the remaining staff lingered in tense silence. Nervous whispers filled the lounge, replacing their earlier confidence with fear and uncertainty. Do you think she's going to lose her job? One of them muttered. She has to. Another answered. Did you see Langston's face? He was livid. What about us? A younger woman's voice trembled. We didn't stop her. Does that make us just as guilty? The question hung heavy in the air. They all knew the truth, but no one dared to say it. Unbeknownst to them, Jasmine hadn't left the airport entirely. She sat in a secluded section, her eyes fixed on the chaos unfolding beyond the glass. The buzz of her phone pulled her attention, a message from Anderson. The termination process is underway. I've secured a meeting with our new partner tomorrow. A small smile played at Jasmine's lips. The new partner was an airline known for its progressive policies, a company that valued its customers, unlike Skyline. But satisfaction was tainted with bitterness. The sting of Heather's words, the mocking laughter of the staff. It wasn't just about the contract. It was about all the times people like her had been dismissed, underestimated. This was more than just a victory. It was a reckoning. Within hours, the ripple effect began. News of the incident spread like wildfire. Despite Jasmine's intention to keep things quiet, a passenger had recorded everything. Heather's smug remarks, the staff's cruel laughter. The video, titled Priority Lounge or Priority Prejudice, was uploaded and the internet took it from there. Skyline's PR team scrambled to control the damage, issuing a hollow apology that did little to quiet the uproar. By the time Edward re-entered the lounge, his face was set in stone. He gestured for the staff to gather. His voice was sharp. Final. Listen carefully. What happened today was unacceptable. There is no room for this kind of behavior in our company. I will not tolerate it. A hush fell over the group. Heather stood behind him, pale and trembling. Effective immediately, Heather is no longer employed by Skyline Air. A sharp inhale from Heather, a flicker of disbelief. But Edward didn't spare her a glance. And as for the rest of you, his voice dropped to a dangerous quiet. Consider this your only warning. If I so much as hear a whisper of behavior like this again, you'll be joining her. The staff nodded in silence. Fear and shame painted across their faces. Outside, Jasmine watched through the glass. She didn't need to say anything. Her point had been made. The message was loud and clear. Stepping into the cool evening air, she felt the weight lift from her shoulders. The battle was over. She had stood her ground. But for Skyline, their storm had only just begun. The car ride home was silent. The city lights blurred past the window as Jasmine leaned against the cool glass. Samuel, her driver of many years, didn't speak. He knew when silence was the best comfort. Her phone vibrated. Anderson again. Jasmine, it's everywhere. News outlets, social media, international networks. People are furious with Skyline. She closed her eyes briefly. She had expected backlash, but not like this. Not this fast. Let them handle it, she said. It's their mess to clean up. Are you sure you don't want to make a statement? People are calling you a hero. They want to hear from you. Jasmine exhaled slowly. I didn't do this to be a hero, Anderson. I did it because it was right. That's enough. A pause. Then a quiet. Understood. The next morning, her name was everywhere. Articles, tweets, news segments. Her actions had sparked a movement. Hashtag Justice for Jasmine. Hashtag Skyline Scandal. Headlines dissected every moment of the incident. People weren't just angry at Heather. They were furious with Skyline's entire culture. A knock at the door pulled Jasmine from the endless stream of notifications. Samuel stood there, holding a crisp white envelope. "This was just delivered, ma'am." She took it, her brow furrowing at the embossed Skyline Air logo. Inside, a single letter. "Dear Miss Carter, on behalf of Skyline Air, I extend my sincerest apologies for the unacceptable treatment you endured in our lounge. I am deeply ashamed that our staff acted in a manner so antithetical to our values of respect, inclusion, and excellence. The individuals responsible have been terminated, and we are implementing company-wide training to ensure this never happens again. Furthermore, we would like to offer you a lifetime priority membership as a gesture of our regret. Please know that your experience has become a catalyst for meaningful change within our company. If there is anything further we can do to make amends, do not hesitate to reach out. With deepest apologies, Elliot Greer, CEO, Skyline Air." Jasmine stared at the letter. A lifetime membership, a corporate apology. It was damage control, carefully worded, neatly packaged. But it wasn't for her. It was for them. Because no matter how polished their response, one truth remained. They hadn't changed because they wanted to. They changed because they had no choice. Jasmine's fingers trembled as she unfolded the letter, her eyes scanning the words that felt more like an afterthought than an apology. A lifetime membership? Was that supposed to erase the sting of Heather's laughter, the humiliation that had rippled through the lounge that night? She exhaled sharply, folded the letter with precision, and placed it on the counter. Words meant nothing without action, and Jasmine had already set her plan in motion. That afternoon, she sat confidently in a sleek conference room, surrounded by executives from her new airline partner. The air buzzed with optimism, the atmosphere professional yet warm. The CEO extended a hand, his smile genuine. "We're thrilled to have you with us, Miss Carter. Your values align with ours, and we're committed to ensuring every passenger is treated with dignity and respect." Jasmine shook his hand firmly. "Thank you. I look forward to building something meaningful, something built on integrity." As the meeting concluded, she felt something shift within her. The wounds of the past hadn't vanished, but they had solidified her resolve. Justice wasn't a single victory. It was a relentless pursuit, and Jasmine Carter was just getting started. That evening, as the golden light of sunset bathed the city skyline, she walked through her quiet townhouse. She paused by the window, her reflection merging with the fading daylight. In her hand, she held the letter from Skyline Air's CEO, a hollow apology wrapped in corporate rhetoric. A lifetime membership? As if that could erase the deeper wounds. Wounds that weren't just hers, but those of countless others who had suffered the same silent indignities. Jasmine sat down, staring at the letter on the glass coffee table. Was it enough to let this go? To walk away and let Skyline deal with the fallout? The answer was immediate. She opened her laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating her determined expression. If Skyline Air truly wanted change, it would take more than PR statements and a few firings. She began digging, scrolling through reviews, complaints, and lawsuits buried beneath layers of corporate polish. Patterns emerged, discrimination claims silenced, settlements hushed with ironclad NDAs. A former employee's testimonial caught her eye. Skyline talks about diversity, but behind closed doors, it's a different story. I saw firsthand how customers and employees were treated based on their background. It's a toxic culture they refuse to address. Jasmine's jaw tightened. This wasn't an isolated case. It was a systemic issue. The next morning, she dialed Anderson. His voice came through, steady as always. "Morning, Jasmine. What's on your mind?" She leaned back in her chair, her tone even but resolute. "I need your help. I've been digging into Skyline's past, and what happened to me is just the tip of the iceberg." Anderson let out a low whistle. "Figured as much. What's the plan?" Jasmine turned to the city skyline, her gaze unwavering. "We expose it. All of it." For the next several weeks, her townhouse transformed into an investigative war room. Lawyers specializing in civil rights, investigative journalists hungry for the truth, and grassroots advocates filled the space. Documents piled high, late-night meetings stretched into dawn, and the air buzzed with purpose. This wasn't just about Jasmine's experience. It was about every person who had been silenced. One evening, Claire, a young journalist, approached her, eyes alight with urgency. "Jasmine, we found something." She handed over a stack of documents. Jasmine skimmed through, her pulse quickening. Claire continued, "It's worse than we thought. Skyline didn't just ignore discrimination complaints. they actively suppressed them. Dozens of employees and customers forced into silence with NDAs. Jasmine exhaled, the weight of it all pressing down. Then she straightened. We've got what we need. Let's make it count. The exposé broke on a quiet Wednesday morning. Headlines dominated every major news outlet. Skyline Air's hidden scandals. A culture of discrimination exposed. Whistleblowers speak out against Skyline's toxic culture. Jasmine Carter's fight for justice sparks national reckoning. The articles were relentless, filled with testimonials from employees and customers long silenced. Jasmine's own story became the catalyst for something much larger. Cameras flashed, news anchors dissected the scandal, and social media erupted in outrage. Skyline CEO, Elliot Greer, faced an emergency press conference. His usually polished demeanor cracked under the barrage of questions. "We are deeply sorry," he stammered. "We are committed to change." A reporter held up a printed exposé. "Mr. Greer, why didn't Skyline address these issues when they were first reported? Why did it take a public scandal to force action?" The murmurs grew. The damage was done. Jasmine watched from her office, a quiet satisfaction settling over her. Her phone buzzed, a text from Anderson. "You did it, Jasmine. This is bigger than anyone imagined." She typed back, "We did it. And this is just the beginning." In the days that followed, protests erupted outside Skyline's headquarters. Signs reading "Accountability Now" and "Justice for All" filled the streets. News vans lined the sidewalks. Cameras trained on the entrance as executives rushed in and out, dodging questions. Jasmine stayed back, watching from a distance. The fight had grown beyond her. It had become a movement. But even in victory, the weight of the battle lingered. She thought of the employees she had met, the customers who had finally spoken up. Each one carried their own scars, their own battles. The doorbell rang, its sharp chime cutting through the silence. Jasmine turned, her heels clicking softly against the floor. The fight wasn't over, and she wasn't done yet. The night was quiet, the kind of eerie silence that makes you second-guess every sound. Jasmine wasn't expecting anyone. Samuel had already left for the evening. So when the knock came, sharp and urgent, a chill ran down her spine. She opened the door, and there stood Claire, the young journalist who had unearthed the damning documents. Her auburn hair was disheveled, and she clutched a manila folder like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "Claire." Jasmine's surprise was evident. "What are you doing here?" Skyline CEO, Elliot Greer, faced an emergency press conference. His usually polished demeanor cracked under the barrage of questions. "We are deeply sorry," he stammered. "We are committed to change." A reporter held up a printed exposé. "Mr. Greer, why didn't Skyline address these issues when they were first reported? Why did it take a public scandal to force action?" The murmurs grew. The damage was done. Jasmine watched from her office, a quiet satisfaction settling over her. Her phone buzzed, a text from Anderson. "You did it, Jasmine. This is bigger than anyone imagined." She typed back, "We did it. And this is just the beginning." In the days that followed, protests erupted outside Skyline's headquarters. Signs reading "Accountability Now" and "Justice for All" filled the streets. News vans lined the sidewalks. Cameras trained on the entrance as executives rushed in and out, dodging questions. Jasmine stayed back, watching from a distance. The fight had grown beyond her. It had become a movement. But even in victory, the weight of the battle lingered. She thought of the employees she had met, the customers who had finally spoken up. Each one carried their own scars, their own battles. The doorbell rang, its sharp chime cutting through the silence. Jasmine turned, her heels clicking softly against the floor. The fight wasn't over, and she wasn't done yet. The night was quiet, the kind of eerie silence that makes you second-guess every sound. Jasmine wasn't expecting anyone. Samuel had already left for the evening. So when the knock came, sharp and urgent, a chill ran down her spine. She opened the door, and there stood Claire, the young journalist who had unearthed the damning documents. Her auburn hair was disheveled, and she clutched a manila folder like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "Claire." Jasmine's surprise was evident. "What are you doing here?" "I'm sorry for dropping by unannounced," Claire said, her voice edged with urgency. "But there's something you need to see." Jasmine stepped aside, letting her in. Claire moved quickly, her nervous energy palpable, as she set the folder on the coffee table. "I thought we uncovered everything," Claire continued, breathless. "But I was wrong. There's more." Jasmine flipped open the folder. Internal memos, confidential emails, financial records. One email, in particular, caught her eye. "We need to handle this quietly. Any public acknowledgement could damage the brand irreparably. Offer settlements where necessary, but ensure NDAs are signed." The date on the email was recent. Too recent. "This changes everything," Jasmine said, her voice low but firm. Skyline Air hadn't just ignored the problem. They actively worked to silence it. Claire's expression darkened. "It gets worse," she said. "Some of the settlements involved intimidation. Employees were threatened with termination if they didn't comply." Jasmine leaned back, the weight of the discovery settling over her. The air felt thick, charged with something electric and dangerous. "We can't let this stand," Jasmine said, steel lacing her words. "The public needs to know the full extent of what happened." The next morning, Jasmine sat in her office, the folders spread out before her. She was on the phone with Anderson, her voice calm but unwavering. "This isn't just about exposing Skyline anymore," she said. "It's about making sure the people they hurt get real justice." Anderson sighed on the other end. "You realize what you're taking on, right? This could escalate into a legal war. Skyline won't go down without a fight." "I'm not afraid of a fight," Jasmine said. "I never have been. But this isn't just about me. It's about everyone who's been silenced, intimidated, dismissed. If we don't see this through, who will?" Change, she understood, wasn't a moment. It was a process, and it required constant vigilance. One crisp autumn morning, Jasmine found herself in a towering glass-walled office, overlooking the city. Across from her sat a group of executives, nonprofit leaders, and social justice advocates. Miss Carter, an older man with salt and pepper hair, began. "Your actions against Skyline have done more than hold a company accountable. You've inspired a movement." Jasmine listened, hands folded neatly in her lap. "But inspiration isn't enough," he continued. "We need action, real systemic change, and we believe you are the right person to lead the charge." He slid a folder across the table. Jasmine opened it. Inside were detailed plans for an initiative called the Equity Alliance, a coalition designed to tackle discrimination across industries. Training programs, policy audits, resources to empower marginalized voices. Jasmine exhaled slowly. "This is ambitious," she said. The man nodded. "It is. But if we want to create lasting change, we need to be bold." Jasmine closed the folder, met his gaze. "I'll do it," she said, "but only if we're fully committed. No half measures. If I put my name behind this, it needs to be real, measurable, transformative." The room erupted into nods of agreement. Jasmine felt something stirred deep within her. Excitement, purpose. This was the next step she had been searching for, and she was ready. Some battles are won in boardrooms, others in courtrooms. But the toughest fights? Those are won in the hearts and minds of people unwilling to back down. Jasmine Carter knew this all too well. The revolution she sparked had grown beyond her, beyond one company, beyond one scandal. Yet, not everyone welcomed change. Some corporations resisted, clinging to their outdated ways. Others issued empty promises, hoping to weather the storm without real action. And then there were the critics, those who labeled her too radical, too relentless. Late one night, after back-to-back meetings and negotiations that left her drained, she found herself alone in her office, staring out at the city skyline. The exhaustion was suffocating. Her phone buzzed. A message from Claire, the journalist who had stood beside her from the beginning. "Don't let them wear you down. What you're doing matters. People are watching, and they're learning from you." A faint smile played on Jasmine's lips. This wasn't just her fight. It never had been. She had set out to carve a path so others wouldn't have to fight so hard just to be seen, to be heard. Months later, she stood at the grand opening of the Equity Alliance's first headquarters, a sleek, modern space in the heart of the city. This wasn't just an office. It was a symbol, a statement, a promise. Open workspaces for collaboration, conference rooms for strategy, a resource center for those who had been silenced for too long. As she cut the ribbon, surrounded by her team and the very people she had fought for, she felt something rare, a moment of pure pride. This was proof that change wasn't just possible. It was happening. That night, Jasmine returned home, the energy of the day still humming through her veins. She stepped onto her balcony, wine in hand, letting the cool night air wash over her. Her phone vibrated, dozens of messages, invitations, requests for her next steps. But for now, she ignored them. Just for tonight, she would allow herself to breathe. She closed her eyes, hearing the voice of the woman who had shaped her into the force she had become. Her mother's words echoed through her mind. "Never let them define you. Define yourself." The fight for justice was never ending, but tonight, she had won. Not with court rulings or media headlines, but with something more powerful, the undeniable proof that change, real change, was possible. Years later, the Equity Alliance had become a global force, with chapters in cities across the world. Jasmine's name had become synonymous with resilience, justice, and action. At a gala marking the Alliance's 10th anniversary, she stood before an audience of thousands. The applause was deafening. Thank you for watching this video. Please do like, comment, and subscribe.